Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Chats with Cultural Experts, Advisors, and Consultants and Researchers across Europe. And I am so incredibly happy to be joined by my dear friend Cristina Farinha from Porto. How is Porto?
Hello, Ragnar. Pleasure to see you and to hear you. You look also sound and fit, so that's very good. Allow me to thank you, of course, first of all, the invitation for this conversation and the initiative. I confess I miss our constant meetings, conferences, frenetic agenda, and encounters across Europe. But nevertheless, the digital space is also a fantastic place to talk, and it also allows us maybe to share as well with others our conversation. So also thank you to all those that will take the time to listen. Porto is now getting sunnier today. Sun is rising up.
Cristina, you are very well known in our circles. You are independent culture policy expert, consultant. You worked with countries, governments, regions, institutions across Europe. You're probably most known in your work with European Capital of Cultures as a member of a jury, and also you worked in your past with supporting and helping cities to bid for the title. So I hope that these are some of the themes that we can cover in our conversation today. But before we start with the bigger picture, I just wanted to ask you about the crisis and the impact it has had in Portugal.
Okay, so in Portugal, I think we are surviving, and that's what counts in these moments. It's hard for me to talk about doing fine or doing relatively well through the crisis, because it has costed lives and set people apart and prevented people from their basic freedoms and even from accessing their means of living. So we're surviving, and that's fine. And gradually getting out of the lockdown, very gradually, but I hope steadily. Concerning the sector, I will try to be positive and highlight opportunities that I see very clearly and that I am hopeful for. But I cannot avoid drawing a kind of a gray picture. In general, and I'm sure what I will say about Portugal will also resonate in other countries. First of all, I'm very happy for the reactions or actions of the sector in terms of, for instance, information gathering and dissemination. As a national expert for the Compendium of Cultural Policies and Trends in Europe, I was asked to assemble information on what is going on in Portugal, the opportunities. And in the same way as the Compendium, so many European cultural networks have provided resources, information on the rights, on measures, on legislation. And the same in Portugal, many NGOs, representative societies, they have made an effort to pull together information and disseminate it. This is, I think, key and very important, and their role. They also have launched surveys, questionnaires to try to understand what was going on, what is the state of affairs. And I also want to stress this because evidence data is one of the gaps of the sector, and we've been discussing this for so long. So the fact that the sector decided to immediately react with surveys and with trying to find evidence data is for me going in the right direction. Finally, so many, and I'm sure probably the same in your country and elsewhere, so many petitions, open letters, manifests, discussions, symbolic acts on Facebook, really trying, the sector is, in my view, finally more united. And able to understand that it's not about competition, but it's about having a common voice. And that is basically crucial in order for survival and in order to be heard. So for this, I'm very happy. And I think they are very good signs. Then the pandemic, in my view, has acted like a mirror, a fantastic, being ironic, a fantastic mirror that shed light on the paradoxes of the sector. So on one way, and many have said this, it became actually common sense, clear. And I've seen posts shared by people from all spheres of life and sectors, a recognition of the value of culture and the importance and essentiality of culture. So when you are locked down, the only way to travel, to escape, to inspire and feed your imagination are through books, through music, through films, through stories. So you've heard this. But good, and it came very clearly, but it also came out very clearly the precarity and the fragility of the sector, and in Portugal very much forward. Though there were measures being put forward, and I would say promptly by the government and the Ministry of Culture, they were still not not managing to overcome the structural problems that are there for longer. So that the reflection of the paradoxes are not new, but they became more intensified probably. So the Ministry of Culture provided, among other things, for an emergency fund that allowed operators to start conceiving, start thinking about projects that they can probably implement in the next period, in the next semester, hopefully. But well, this fund was not that, let's say, not over generous, reflecting, of course, also the low budget of culture in general. And even though they have now announced the winners of this competition, let's say the successful candidates, they have kind of almost doubled the budget, thankfully, because they recognize the demand was huge. And then the structural issues regarding the daily life, the survival of all these actors, they were taken care by the General Ministry for Work and Social Affairs, so the generic support for independent workers. I'm also happy that we are, in what concerns independent workers, getting more and more acquired rights, because this is also a long battle. And just a last word, because I find it crucial and came out as well in many of the discussions, might not be the first thing that you think about, the extreme need we have for a cultural policy, a clear cultural policy in nationwide, but of course also at city level. This is much more than a document. It's what it means and what it legitimates. Really the recognition of the role of culture as a transversal value for different spheres of society is something that we really need in order to go forward with a needed coordination between different policy areas. And also to have the proper means, because it's at the end it's also about the budget and the recognition of this value and of this strategic value that we don't have yet. So this came about in the discussions, and hopefully we go forward also with this debate that needs. It's also a great moment to discuss what is culture nowadays and what can culture bring to our societies, multicultural societies, of course. But it's a great moment, so I see opportunities as well.
Very good. Galway in Ireland, Rijeka in Croatia. I cannot imagine the frustration the teams in those two cities must feel at the moment. Can you imagine, can you discuss a bit of the role of European Capital of Cultures in these kind of circumstances?
It has hit them hard. They would never, in their contingency plans, predict such a thing. And really, all my solidarity and love goes to these two cities. But imagine, it has hit very strongly 2020 European capitals of culture, but also let's talk about 2021 cities, if I can name them: Lefsina in Greece, Timișoara in Romania, Novi Sad in Serbia. They are really on the last moments, the peak of the preparations, and again, it has hit them very hardly. This week I was talking with the Slovenian cities, the candidates, and this year we are pre-selecting and final selecting the German cities and also the Finnish cities. And their preparations were also severely armed. Nevertheless, I would say that to be a capital of culture and to be a European capital of culture becomes even more important. Nowadays. We are going to celebrate in 2025 the 40 years of the initiative, and never such a thing has crossed its path, and putting into cause the paradigm, because at the end it's about coming together across different cultures and coming together via culture. So surely there is a lot of learning to come from this experience. We are absolute beginners on this, but as normally in the present already contains a bit of the future. We have been, I would say, witnessing from some time that smaller and smaller cities have been interested in being candidates and also getting actually the title. So I think that the program has been also maturing throughout all these 45 years now, and has been adapting also to new circumstances that maybe now become clearer, and maybe now we see why. Because I often had also the question, but why such small cities want to become European capitals of culture? And maybe now it becomes clearer. That the small is beautiful. We have been hearing this for long, but the events, the way we envisage and think about these events, they might not need to have the same scale, but they can still be very, very meaningful. We might not target so many foreign visitors, but still we can surely receive visitors and surely be very meaningful for all our communities. And also we have been also among the jury dreaming about a digital European capital of culture. This doesn't mean only taking space at the digital level, but means a city that really can use the digital means in order to explore concepts and ways of participating. Of course, cities have been trying, but probably it was not that significant up until now, and maybe it starts to be in the future. So I think there's an open space to recreate, but the celebration of culture and the celebration of Europe, I think it's more than needed, and it still can be a very effective program to develop cities via culture.
Maybe this crisis and where those cities have found themselves in at this moment just highlights that while there has been in the past years the discussion of maybe changing the narrative about European capital of cultures and the role that the cities, the capitals could play in the European cultural scene and its European dimension has still been maybe too much on maybe this old-fashioned way of thinking of events, festival, tourist, and maybe this even helps the program, that it's not a question of a choice, or it's not writing in a bid book one and then going back to the business as usual when the year comes, but really you have to reimagine the things you can do, because as you say, to be leading discussion, to facilitate certain narratives as a European capital of culture, even in this digital space, has not gone away. I mean, this opportunity is still there, but probably the current cities and those that come right after have not had time to readjust themselves. Do you agree with this?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I make mine what you just said. It's a great moment for reinvention, and actually, I would say that the space for this development is there already in the actual criteria, that is really aiming at a long-term investment, that is really aiming at capacity building. I mean, capacity building it's been crucial since some years now, and it will become even more. It's clear that skills and the need to develop certain skills are still crucial, and not only for the cultural sector, but also for that public administration, for the hospitality, so capacity building, a long-term development, a cultural strategy. These are part of the actual criteria at the moment since 2020. So as I said, the program has been changing. But indeed, even though the criteria are different, I mean, actually this year, and bad luck, the virus came. This year is actually the first year where we actually get to see in action the regulation in force, meaning these two cities, Galway and Rijeka, are the first ones that went through the selection criteria that it is on today. The criteria is already there. I don't even see that there is a need to change this at this moment, at least. So there is space for imagination and creativity for the cities to be able to still use this tool in order to develop themselves. There, certainly and clearly. It's so valid and more and more meaningful, I would say. More and more meaningful.
I need to ask a quick question. You might not have an answer. You might not want to answer this, but I know that a lot of people have been asking this. Has there been any discussion in the circles in the European Capital of Culture on how to react on particularly this year's situation, where both Galway and Rijeka have put so much effort, so much energy, so much money in the past 5 years, 6 years in developing the programs, and virtually nothing has happened. Very little has happened will happen in the first half of the year. Will it somehow be compensated, supported, highlighted, or those questions are new to everyone and everybody's just a bit lost in the jungle?
The cities, the countries, so the ministries are really discussing a lot with the Commission in order to find solutions. It has hit very hard and nobody was expecting. Nevertheless, there might be, and there's not yet formal answers. This takes time still, even in these times of crisis. There might be opportunities, let's say, to extend their spotlight time, let's say, so that they can still put into practice some of their concepts and ideas. I think that they had already a 4-year preparation period that we cannot neglect. So in these 4 years, they did a lot, and this is not lost. Strategy, capacity building, okay, audience development, but still we want to see them on the stage. Let's put it this way: we want to see them in action, and probably there will be some reconfigurations in the schedules so that they can still have the time to show off, let's say, a little bit as they did.
People like you, me, and our fellow colleagues have been working for a long time to raise the awareness of policymakers. You mentioned in the beginning how you see in some cases this has been fruitful and there has been understanding, but in many other cases there is no understanding, no awareness. Culture is still being one of the first areas to be cut because it's non-essential nature. So how do you, I mean, what would you suggest or recommend a city or a region, a local municipality who would turn to you for advice? Why is it at this very moment crucial to think about culture, invest into culture, and how could this help to mitigate some of those problems and risks that those areas, those municipalities have seen during the crisis?
I think we can still keep on repeating a little bit of our mantra, Ragnar, because it's still valid. But I would really urge them to finally dare, let's say, maybe now, after enduring such a crisis, they can risk. They can try and they can dare to do different. And this means, because I think that the mantras that we've been repeating and preaching for the value of culture and its economic impact kind of have been accepted, in theory at least. Got into the speeches locally, regionally, nationally even. But be consequent is maybe now the word. So I would dare them to really, if they are aiming at improving their communities and their territory, I think that they should dare to invest in culture, meaning proper budget, but meaning also giving the conditions for culture to be able to dialogue and coordinate with other policy areas. I just came across another survey, as I was saying, many surveys being launched. It's very good. I'm a sociologist, I'm happy for that. And a European project on well-being. And they are trying to understand the relationship between arts consumption and mental health. Big issue. Shortly after this confinement, this lockdown. So if they want to have healthy communities and healthy territories, they should invest in culture. And I would just urge them to dare to be consequent with it.
I don't assume that you are a fortune teller. You might be, who knows. But do you think, Cristina, that this crisis will have a long-term impact on the basement, the foundations of our society, that the world will never be the same after the crisis as it was before? Or you think that the crisis is rather of a temporary nature, and before soon we're going to be back to normal?
Well, I would be happy that we would change quite a lot, because I do believe there's a lot to be changed. Maybe unfortunately, as I'm a little bit pessimistic, I don't think we are going to change that a lot. But it will take time, I think, to go back to normal, even if that's what we want. And maybe we even want to be more wild than you were before. So even maybe the tendency is to do things even more. And that's not the way to go. But I would say, Ragnar, that's good in the sense that we were also discussing for some time, and I take a look at also my city, my surrounding, that it was getting too much, that we needed to find alternatives, that we were destroying our planet in traveling that much. So maybe now we are thinking twice before we go. that we really make sure that it's not just for an hour meeting that we are going to travel, but that we are going to go also for other activities, instead of going and trying to believe that we are going to get to know a city in a short weekend of one and a half days or 2 days, that we go for a week, and that we maybe try to engage and understand really the identity, the essentiality of the city. So I would say that's for me good news, that we are forced in a way to find alternatives and to slow down, basically to slow down.
But for your cities, the cities that you work with, also culture capitals, that means more competition for the time and attention of its visitors.
So that's why I said the competition is going wilder. That's what I meant by wilder some minutes ago. Surely, yes. So then you have to be distinctive, different. So then we go again to culture and the arts. That's the only way that they can improve that communication-wise. I mean, communication becomes even more, we were saying this already before, but becomes crucial, indeed.
The last question, this is a question I've asked every one of our guests. If I call you back in 1 year time, 2021 May, hopefully call back earlier, but if I do that, what do you think, what the world will look like?
Oh, Ragnar. First of all, I hope that we won't be exactly in the same place, meaning that there was a kind of COVID-20 or COVID-21. I hope that, I don't hope at all. But I will then tell you that, allowing me to dream a little bit in the scenery, setting the scenery, that we could go by the sea, for instance, and that can be in Portugal or in Estonia, because you also have a coast. And I refer to the sea, so we could talk and meet by the sea, because the sea for me is really a symbol of freedom of movement. So I would be happy to be able to, in May 2021, feel free to wander around, not afraid of people. Also, I mean, I know that masks are getting very fashionable and a very important fashion accessory, and they are a must, but honestly, I hope that we are not needing to use them forever. So already in May 2021, I prefer to be talking to you without a mask. I will be happy for that. I tell you, very happy. But in a more abstract way, I would hope, and as we talked also before about what is going to change, that this experience allows us to realize that actually the world is rounded, and what we do and our attitudes bounce back to us, so that we become a little bit, this already makes a little bit more social responsible, and including environmental responsible, not so selfish.
You asked for so little. Thank you, Cristina. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights, and I wish you and your family that you all stay safe and you all stay negative.
Thank you.